Part 1. The Storm Before the Break. Seattle never truly slept, but winter made it quieter, its edges softened by the endless drizzle sliding down glass towers like exhausted tears. From the panoramic windows of the Ava Caldwell residence, Elliott Bay looked like a sheet of hammered obsidian, broken only by the lazy blink of cargo ships drifting through the fog. The house itself, a modernist temple of steel and smart glass, perched above the shoreline like a predator waiting for the tide to bleed. Inside, Allie Harper stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, still wearing the silk robe she'd thrown on when the doorbell camera pinged. It was 6:12 a.m., and a courier in a wet parka had handed her a thick envelope labeled Caldwell v. Caldwell, emergency filing. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Her breath died halfway up her throat. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Request for sole physical and legal custody of minor child, Ava Caldwell. Request to freeze marital assets pending adjudication. Allegations of chronic alcohol use, emotional instability, and endangerment. At the bottom, stamped in red, urgent, expedited hearing requested. For a full minute, the only sound in the house was the rain tick-ticking against the window. Then Allie lowered the papers, staring at the signatures like they were written in another language. Sebastian had done it. And he had chosen today, of all days. Today was supposed to be the greatest triumph of his career, the day his AI company, Neuralattice, debuted on the Nasdaq at an $8 billion valuation. He had told her last week that afterward they would revisit their marriage, that everything would be clearer once the IPO dust settled. Instead, he had blindsided her with annihilation. 1. The billionaire in the mirror. Seb always played the long game. It was what attracted Ellie to him 13 years earlier in law school, when he was the prodigy who argued like a scalpel and she was the scholarship girl who worked 2 jobs. But the man who now walked into the kitchen at 7:03 a.m., perfect suit, perfect jawline, perfect indifference, was a stranger. Morning, he said, as if nothing had exploded. Ellie held the papers in both hands. Seb, what is this? He glanced at the envelope, his expression still, almost bored. A necessary step. A necessary step? You're taking Ava? You're freezing our accounts? Correction, he replied calmly. My accounts. And yes, I'll be requesting emergency sole custody. It's what's best for her. Ellie felt her pulse spike. How dare you? You know I've never. You drink, he interrupted. A lot. I have a glass of wine on stressful nights. That's not abuse. He tapped a few words into his phone. I'll let the court decide. Her voice cracked. Sebastian, why today? Why like this? He finally looked up, eyes colder than the rain outside. Because you don't get to ruin my IPO. Then he walked past her, leaving the faint smell of cedar cologne and betrayal hanging in the air. 2. The daughter in the walls. A soft voice floated from the staircase. Mom. Ava Caldwell stood halfway down the steps, her curls tangled, her oversized hoodie slipping off one shoulder. 8 years old. Small for her age. Eyes too quiet for childhood. Ellie swallowed the lump in her throat. It's okay, sweetheart. Just adult problems. Ava padded into the kitchen and climbed onto a stool. He served the papers early. He thought that would destabilize you during the hearing. Ellie blinked at her. Ava always spoke like this, precise, almost clinical, especially when she was nervous. How do you know that? Ellie whispered. Ava shrugged. He scheduled the courier in his calendar. I synced the house system with his work phone 3 months ago. Ellie should have been horrified. But instead she felt something like awe. Ava wasn't just smart, she saw patterns in people the way other children saw constellations. Mom, Ava said quietly, he doesn't love us. He only loves winning. Ellie pulled her daughter close, burying her face in the scent of rain and shampoo. I won't let him take you, she swore. Ava didn't respond. She simply rested her head on her mother's shoulder, and in that silence Allie felt a promise forming, one the world would regret underestimating. 3. When the trap springs. By noon, things had gotten worse. Much worse. Allie's personal bank accounts, frozen. Her credit cards, declined. The household staff, dismissed by Seb in a mass email. The smart fridge, locked because it required Seb's admin code for authorized purchases. Even the pantry scanner refused to open. Allie stood in the middle of the gleaming kitchen, realizing with horror that she had nothing, no access to money, no food beyond half a loaf of bread, no support. Seb had cut the safety net, and she was free falling. Ava tugged her sleeve. Mom, you haven't eaten today. Allie forced a smile. I'm fine. But she wasn't. By late afternoon, dizzy from hunger and fear, she walked 5 blocks in the freezing rain to a plasma donation center. The nurses didn't ask why a woman wearing a $3,000 coat was selling her blood. She used the $95 payment to buy milk, bread, and a small pack of fruit. When she got home, Ava was waiting in the foyer, eyes wide. Mom, you're shivering. It's just the rain, sweetie. But Ava wasn't fooled. She never was. 4. The Hidden War. That night, while Allie slept from exhaustion, Ava moved silently through the house with her homemade smartwatch, a Frankenstein device made of a Raspberry Pi Zero, an OLED screen, and a mesh strap she braided herself. She tapped into the smart home's hidden nodes. She bypassed her father's encrypted firewall. She accessed the raw, unedited video archives from the internal cameras Seb had installed for security, but Ava had cracked open within a week of their construction. Hours of footage. Days. Months. 2 years' worth of digital memory. She watched the timestamps. Dad yelling. Dad manipulating. Dad rehearsing arguments with Lauren in the underground garage. She saved everything to an encrypted folder only she could access. Then she found something else, something worse. A set of financial transfers to a Kaiman trust. All tagged with the same recipient. Lauren Voss. Ava exhaled slowly through her nose. I knew it. She opened Lauren's email account through a brute force algorithm she'd written to exploit a flaw in the psychologist's outdated multi-factor app. Inbox Lauren's sent folder. There they were. After we get custody, we'll send Ava to the boarding school in Zug, she'll adapt quickly. Make sure Allie loses her temper on the stand. The judge needs to see instability. Her inheritance is effectively ours once the IPO hits. Ava copied every file. Every audio clip. Every video frame. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She simply whispered to the empty room. He shouldn't have underestimated me. 5. A lawyer from another life. The next morning, Allie sat in Marcus Reed's cramped Pioneer Square office. He was the only lawyer she could afford, because he was the only lawyer who didn't ask for a retainer she couldn't pay. Allie, Marcus said gently, the evidence Seb's team submitted is extensive. What evidence? He slid over a tablet. A montage played. Allie drinking wine while pacing the kitchen, Allie crying in the shower, Allie tripping on the stairs after slipping on a toy. All cut to look like alcoholism, instability, danger. Allie gasped. This is doctored. It has to be. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Probably. But the judge has already reviewed some of it. And Seb hired Damien Holt. Allie felt faint. Damien Holt was notorious, unbeaten, merciless, a shark whose retainer alone could buy a house. Marcus leaned forward. I'll fight for you. I will. But if even half of this sticks, it's an uphill battle. Allie's voice thinned to a whisper. He's going to take her. Marcus hesitated. Do you have anything to counter with? Anything at all? Ali thought of Ava's strange calmness. Her late-night whispers. Her constant tapping on devices. Not yet, Ali murmured. But I think Ava does. 6. The night before Judgment Day. The emergency hearing was set for 9 a.m. the next morning. Ali lay awake, staring at the ceiling as rain hammered the windows. Beside her, Ava slept curled up like a fox, small, guarded, brilliant. Around 3 a.m., Ava whispered in the dark. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" Ava sat up. Her eyes gleamed faintly in the shadows. "I need your permission." "For what?" "For tomorrow." Ali reached over, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Whatever happens?" "I trust you." Ava nodded once, silent, resolute. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if the whole city inhaled. Judgment Day awaited. Part 2, Judgment Day. Seattle's Superior Court was a brutalist monolith of concrete and wet windows, squatting in the mist like a tired giant. On Judgment Day, its hallways buzzed with journalists eager to catch a glimpse of Sebastian Caldwell, the golden boy of tech, the visionary CEO delivering his IPO debut even as he fought a vicious custody battle. To them, it was gossip. To Ali, it was survival. She stepped out of Marcus Reed's aging Subaru, clutching her thrift store umbrella, wishing the ground would stop tilting beneath her. The courthouse steps felt impossibly long. Beside her, Ava walked with an eerie calmness, her small hand tucked inside Ali's. Her raincoat hood was up, droplets dripping off the edges like diamonds. Marcus trotted ahead, checking his briefcase. "Remember, Ali, stay composed. Holt's entire strategy is to make you react. To look unstable." Ali nodded, but her stomach churned. "Where's Seb?" "You'll see him," Marcus muttered darkly. "He's never late to his own victory lap." 1. The Predator in a suit. The double doors to courtroom 4 opened with a heavy clunk. There he was. Sebastian Caldwell, the man she once believed she knew, sitting tall, immaculate in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Marcus's car. His expression was serene, almost indulgent. Damian Holt sat beside him, flipping through color-coded binders like a general reviewing troop formations. And then she saw Lauren Voss. The psychologist wore a cream turtleneck, hair in a sleek bun, pearl earrings gleaming. She sat in the front row, VIP seating for the mistress who'd helped orchestrate this nightmare. Ali's throat tightened. Seb glanced up. Their eyes met. His smile was razor-thin. Ava squeezed Ali's hand once, a silent reminder. "Don't break." "Not yet." 2. Opening shots fired. Judge Meredith Winslow entered, black robes billowing like a storm cloud. Known across Washington state as the Iron Gavel, she tolerated neither theatrics nor manipulation. "All rise." Court came to order. Damian Holt stood immediately. "Your Honor, my client Mr. Caldwell requests emergency sole custody due to Mrs. Harper Caldwell's repeated episodes of alcohol abuse, emotional volatility, and unsafe parenting." He tapped a tablet. "We have video evidence." Ali flinched as clips began playing on the courtroom screens, her drinking a glass of wine, her crying, her tripping on stairs. All spliced together into a horror reel. Lauren Voss nodded sympathetically from the front row, as though genuinely concerned for Ava's welfare. Damian continued, "We also have testimony from Ava's teacher stating the child displays fear responses around Mrs. Caldwell." Ali gasped. "That's not." "Mrs. Caldwell," the judge warned sharply. "You will remain silent until asked." Ali bit her lip until she tasted blood. Seb sat back, expression saintly. Marcus rose next, dwarfed by Holt's theatrics. "Your Honor, these videos are edited. There is no proof of alcoholism or abuse. My client is a devoted mother, financially trapped, emotionally targeted, and your client," Holt cut in, "is erratic. which the court will see shortly. Marcus flushed. Objection. Sustained, the judge said. Stick to facts, Mr. Holt. But the damage was done. The seed of erratic had been planted. Allie felt heat rising in her chest. She forced herself to stay still. 4. Ava. 3. The psychologist's knife. Next, Lauren took the stand. Dr. Voss, please state your qualifications. Lauren smiled demurely. Board-certified neuropsychologist. I run a child development clinic in downtown Seattle. Did you evaluate the Caldwell child? Yes. I was court-appointed. A lie. Allie's pulse spiked. She opened her mouth to protest, but Marcus placed a steadying hand on her arm. Lauren continued smoothly. Ava exhibits signs of high-functioning autism, exacerbated by a toxic maternal environment. Allie's vision blurred. No. Judge Winslow snapped, Mrs. Caldwell, last warning. Lauren delivered the next line with rehearsed sorrow. The child expressed fear of her mother's unpredictable outbursts. Seb pretended to wipe a tear. Holt patted his shoulder. Allie felt like screaming. Everything was upside down. Everything was twisted. Ava watched quietly from the gallery bench, her face unreadable. 4. The meltdown they wanted. Then Holt stood again. We request an immediate ruling for full paternal custody. The judge asked, is the child present? Ava's small voice floated across the room. I'm here. Judge Winslow softened slightly. Would you like to join us up front, sweetheart? Ava shook her head. Not yet, Your Honor. Holt smirked. She's frightened. As expected. That did it. Allie rose from her chair. Don't you dare talk about my daughter like Mrs. Caldwell. Judge Winslow thundered. Holt spread his hands, triumphant. See. Instability. Allie froze. She had walked right into it. Seb exhaled theatrically, as though burdened by her emotional fragility. Marcus whispered, Allie. Please. Sit. She sank back down, tears stinging her eyes. Ava watched her mother, expression sharpening with quiet fury. 5. The judge's pre-ruling. After hours of testimony, legal ambushes, and character assassination, Judge Winslow shuffled her papers. I am prepared to issue my ruling. Allie's heart stopped. Seb straightened in his seat. Holt practically vibrated with victory. But before the judge could speak. Bang. The courtroom doors slammed open. Every head whipped around. There stood Ava, drenched in rain, her tiny figure framed by the cold gray light. Her raincoat clung to her body, water puddled around her boots. In her right hand she dragged a small silver suitcase. Seb whispered, horrified, No, 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 no. Lauren paled. Judge Winslow stared. Young lady, why are you entering alone? Ava stepped forward, voice steady as steel. Your Honor, before you sign any order taking me away from my mom, may I have 60 seconds to play something the court hasn't seen? The room went silent. Judge Winslow blinked, then nodded. Proceed. Ava snapped open her suitcase. Inside was a MacBook Pro wrapped in waterproof lining, a small microphone, and a portable cable she had clearly brought with intention. She walked straight past her father. Straight past Lauren. Straight to the court's AV station. Plugged in. Opened a folder titled Truth. And hit play. 6. The Empire cracks. The giant courtroom screens flickered, then stabilized into 4K clarity. Audio filled the room. The garage. Seb's voice. Laughing. Plotting. Words as sharp as bullets. Once we get custody, she won't remember her mother after a month in Switzerland. Ali's inheritance is mine. After the IPO clears, she's irrelevant. Lauren will be the perfect trophy wife. Gasps erupted. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. That's taken out of context. Ava clicked to the next file. Emails. I already adjusted the psychological report. Push Ali to scream again. Judges hate unstable women. Transfer the remaining funds from her inheritance once the Kaiman account is finalized. A courtroom officer muttered, Jesus Christ. Seb shot to his feet. Turn it off. He lunged toward Ava. Two security officers intercepted him instantly, pinning his arms behind his back. The judge's gavel slammed so loudly it echoed down the hall. Mr. Caldwell, sit down. Seb struggled, eyes wild, feral. You little. Ava simply stepped backward, unfazed, tilting her head slightly as if observing a malfunctioning machine. Judge Winslow turned to her. Did you obtain these files yourself? Yes, Your Honor, Ava replied. Dad always bragged that I inherited his intelligence. The gallery erupted in stunned murmurs. Ali covered her mouth, tears spilling, not from fear this time, but from awe. 7. The judge unleashed. When the last file stopped playing, the courtroom fell into dead silence. Judge Winslow's face hardened into a mask of fury. Mr. Caldwell. Dr. Voss. Stand. Seb tried to speak. Your Honor, this is. Silence. Even the walls seemed to flinch. The judge inhaled slowly, as though weighing centuries of judicial rage. Then. Effective immediately, the court hereby denies Mr. Caldwell's petition for custody. Seb's knees buckled. Mrs. Harper Caldwell is granted sole physical and legal custody of the minor child, effective now. Ali sobbed, covering her face. Judge Winslow wasn't done. Furthermore, I am issuing a 10-year no-contact order against Mr. Caldwell, pending criminal investigation. Lauren swayed on her feet. The judge pointed at her. Dr. Voss, you are hereby ordered into custody for perjury, evidence tampering, and collusion in psychological fraud. A courtroom officer stepped behind Lauren, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists. She squeaked, voice trembling. This is a misunderstanding. Enough, the judge growled. Then she turned back to Seb. As for you, Mr. Caldwell, the court formally refers your actions to the FBI for immediate investigation. Wire fraud. Financial fraud. Asset concealment. Child endangerment. The list is extensive. The spectators were frozen, breathless. And, Judge Winslow added, all withheld assets, including Neurolatus shares, are to be released to Mrs. Harper Caldwell pending restitution. Seb's face collapsed. The empire he built, stolen, really, was dissolving in front of him. Ava closed her laptop, lifted it into her arms, and walked slowly toward her mother. 8. Mother and daughter. When Ali knelt, Ava stepped into her embrace without hesitation. I told you, Ava whispered into her mother's ear, voice soft but sharp as a blade, never underestimate a girl who can code. Ali laughed through tears, holding her daughter like she was holding life itself. Marcus stood behind them, stunned, whispering under his breath, holy hell. As officers escorted Seb and Lauren out in handcuffs, Ava watched silently, expression unreadable, almost calculating. Outside, the winter rain pounded the courthouse steps, washing away any trace of the battle that had taken place inside. But the war? The war was over. And the winners were walking out the front doors hand in hand. Part 3, Redemption. 3 months later, the rain in Seattle had softened into a slow winter hush, gentler, almost cleansing. But the city still buzzed with the aftershocks of the courtroom earthquake that detonated the Caldwell name across every news outlet in America. The headlines had been merciless. Tech CEO collapses in federal scandal. Child prodigy exposes massive fraud. Dr. Lauren Vos disbarred, faces felony charges. The Harper inheritance returns to its rightful owner. Through it all, Allie stayed silent. Not out of fear, out of peace. For the first time in years, she didn't need to defend herself. The truth had already done the heavy lifting. And Ava? Ava thrived. 1. The house that was never a home. The glass mansion on the hill no longer echoed with the cold hum of Seb's surveillance empire. The FBI had seized all devices, servers, and hidden storage arrays during their investigation. The walls were stripped of the invisible eyes that had watched Allie for 2 years. "Mom?" Ava asked one night, standing in the doorway of Allie's room. "Yes, baby? Can we move?" Allie looked around at the marble floors, the sterile lighting, the view of Allie at bay that never felt like hers. "Yes," she answered softly. "We can go anywhere." Ava nodded, satisfied. "Good. I want a place where no one watches us." The next morning, Allie called a realtor. By the end of the week, the house was listed. By the end of the month, sold. It felt like exhaling for the first time in years. 2. Federal Prison, Eastern Washington. Sebastian Caldwell paced the floor of his cell, chains clinking against the concrete. He had lost track of the days, but the guards had not. They watched him like a lab specimen, partly because he was a flight risk, partly because he had become a living cautionary tale. The prosecution's case against him was monstrous: wire fraud, financial misconduct, asset concealment, perjury, child endangerment, interstate money laundering, conspiracy, and more. His attorneys begged him to take a plea. He refused. He was Sebastian Caldwell. He did not lose. But the world no longer cared. He stared through the narrow window at the snow-covered fences and whispered the same line every morning. "She's 8. She's a child. She couldn't have, and she couldn't. But she had." And everyone knew. The prodigy daughter who hacked her father's empire. The little girl who gutted a billionaire with truth. The humiliation was worse than the bars. 3. Lauren's fall. In a small, rented studio apartment on the outskirts of Tacoma, Lauren Vos sat on the floor among piles of unpaid bills and boxes of clothes she hadn't had time to unpack. Her medical license? Revoked. Her reputation? Ashes. Her job? Gone. Her savings? Seized during the investigation. The woman who once dined with tech royalty and drank vintage champagne now reheated instant noodles on a single-burner stove. She checked her inbox again. No job offers. No interview requests. Only hate mail. Her phone buzzed, another headline notification. She deleted it. The worst part wasn't the poverty. It was the silence. Seb wouldn't answer her letters. The world wouldn't believe her excuses. And the court wouldn't undo what Ava had exposed. She had gambled everything to become a trophy wife. Instead, she became a cautionary tale. 4. Allie, reborn. Each morning, Allie now woke up in a sunlit craftsman-style home near Ballard, a warm, wooden sanctuary wrapped in cedar, far from the cold glass mausoleum she once lived in. The fireplace crackled. The kitchen smelled of real breakfasts she and Ava cooked together. Freedom had a flavor. It tasted like cinnamon and possibility. With her reclaimed inheritance and the seized Neurolattice shares, now valued at nearly $200 million post-IPO, Allie had become the majority shareholder of the very company Seb once used as a weapon against her. Marcus Reed helped her file paperwork to join the board. They celebrated with cheap tacos, laughing like old friends. "You know," Marcus told her, "you're the first client I've ever known who became richer after a divorce without even finalizing the divorce." Allie smirked. "I didn't ask for any of this." Marcus shrugged. "Maybe not. But you survived it. And now you own it." She wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Done apologizing. Done being underestimated. Done playing nice for a world that rewarded cruelty. Ava watched her mother reclaim her life with quiet pride, as though ticking a box on a checklist only she could see. 5. The daughter who saw everything. Ava adapted quickly to their new life. She joined a robotics club. Qualified for a national coding challenge. Built a surveillance-proof router for fun. And designed a smart lock for the pantry that only opened if Ali said she had eaten enough food that day. Safety measure, Ava insisted. You forget yourself sometimes. Ali laughed until she cried. When teachers asked Ava how she was coping with the trauma, Ava shrugged. I'm fine, she replied. But privately, she asked her mother one night. Mom? Do normal families do this? Hack things? Expose things? Fight in court? Ali kissed the top of her daughter's head. No, sweetheart. Normal families don't. Ava thought about that. I don't want to be normal. Ali smiled. Neither do I. 6. The final confrontation, of sorts. One late afternoon, as Ali and Ava returned from grocery shopping, they found an envelope on their doorstep. No stamp. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper inside. From the Federal Detention Center. To Eleanor Harper. Seb's handwriting. Ali hesitated, then handed it to Ava. Do you want to read it? Ava opened it with a surgical calm. The letter said, I hope you're proud. You destroyed your own father. You ruined everything. One day you'll understand what you cost me. Sebastian. Ava folded the letter neatly and walked it straight to the fireplace. She tossed it in. Flames curled around it, devouring the ink. Ali watched her daughter's face. No fear. No guilt. Only clarity. Ava turned to her. He destroyed himself, the child said simply. I just told the truth. Ali hugged her tightly. You did the bravest thing I've ever seen. 7. Redemption. Spring approached, and with it came a new beginning. Ali decided to buy something she never imagined owning. A boat. Not a flashy yacht like the ones Seb used to show off at charity galas, but a sleek, modern vessel with deep blue hull and polished decks. Ava helped choose the name. Redemption. The lettering gleamed gold against the stern. On its maiden voyage, mother and daughter pushed off from the dock at Puget Sound. The wind carried the smell of salt and cedar. The city skyline glimmered behind them, a place of ghosts and rebirth. Ava stood at the bow, hair whipping in the breeze, eyes sharp with future. Ali watched her, feeling something she thought she'd forgotten. Hope. Real, radiant hope. They sailed past ferries, seagulls, and the dark silhouette of Bainbridge Island. Far in the distance, barely visible through the mist, stood the federal penitentiary. A cold, square dot on the horizon. Ava followed Ali's gaze. He's small from here, Ava observed. He's gone from here, Ali corrected, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. Ava leaned against her. Mom? Yes? A slow smile lifted